Okay, I'm going to take a little of this. And I still got some white there. I want a little of this in there. Take a little yellow in there. A little more yellow. If you got something that's too red, like this, and you don't want it too red, what do you do to brown it up? Do you know? No, that would make it darker. Here's the color. Green. Green and red are complements. When you put them together, you get brown. So if you got a paint that like burnt umber is a reddish brown. If it's too red for your applications, like it's too red for this, then you have to add some green to it to get it to switch more to brown. Because some of the colors that you want, nobody makes. You know, that's just the way it is. There's the color I'm looking for this undercoat, or this. Takes longer to make the mist, or make the undercoat than it does to slop it on.
So of those 4 birds there, which ones had the black gesso and which ones had the white gesso?
Okay, well I used the black gesso on the black parts of the hooded merganser and the back and the head of the buffle heads, and I would use the black with the browns in it with this.
So it's not really a one...
No, it's not one solid color over the whole bird. No, you pick a patch. If it's got a light side pocket on it, like this hen buffle head, this side pocket would be white and brown, maybe a touch of black just to gray it up a little bit. But this would be more black and brown and just a touch of white. Okay, this obviously is very white with a touch of black in it just to gray it up underneath. And if you come, white on white is the hardest thing you can paint. Did you know that? I mean, if you aren't careful, it'll come out looking like chalk. And you have to put a lot of different colors in there to keep it from doing that. But when you get up here, it looks kind of mottled and doesn't look solid. All right, I want to show you a couple of different things. There are 2 different types of blending. One is called wet blending, and the other one's called dry blending. Isn't that funny, huh? Let's say, for instance, we had this area over here. Now that's not very what I wanted to do, but okay, we'll do it anyway. And then we're going to put another coat on right next to it of a different color paint. And the one thing you never want to do is pull a brush down like this and make a straight line, because it'll show that. You take it and you go like this and make it kind of jagged, and it's easier to do. Once you get it like that and it's wet, if you want to blend those two, you take a puffy brush and just bend them like this, and you can get an airbrush effect where it'll go from one right into the other one. You just put your two wet ones next to each other, get a good puffy brush. When I say puffy, you want it round and kind of short bristled. Now these are some brushes that are built just for that. These are made and sold by the second best carver in the world, Pat Godden. You see how short those are? They're like, I use the analogy, they're like miniature makeup brushes that women use. If you ever seen those round ones that your wives or girlfriends or whatever uses. Well, these are kind of short and round and puffy like that. And you take these and you, when I'm doing blending, that's what these are for.
It's a stencil brush. These are for
Is
stencils,
that-
because that's how the paint is applied to a stencil.
Oh,
It's
okay.
pounded in.
No, I didn't know that.
Yep.
See, I'm learning stuff. I got lots to learn.
They can come stiff or soft missile.
Okay, so that's wet brush. Yeah, if you, yeah, yeah. When you're doing the two though, that's your wet brush blending. And you get it to where it just goes one right into the other and you can't see the lines. That's a good effect on a lot of areas on your paintings that you do. Okay, now another way of doing it is called dry brush. You ready, Kim? Gonna catch it. Aha. It's still not shook up well. I'm gonna have to take this home and shake it while I'm watching TV or something. Do what?
The lid will come off, and it won't be on the carpet.
Yeah. Well, I've done that before too. Okay, we're gonna let that dry for a little bit before we get on to dry blending. Now I'm gonna go back, okay, vermiculation. Do you know what vermiculation means? You see the hooded merganser down there? On the side pocket, that's the reddish brown feathers. You see those little lines of dots? Let me see if I can pull it over here for the camera a little bit better. Tell me which way to go. That okay? Okay, you see those little lines in the side pockets there? That's called vermiculation. And what you do there is this is when you get a script brush. Do you all know what a script brush looks like? They got a lot of real long bristles, okay? And you take them and you use, when you're using them, you want them really soaked up. You want them full of paint. And you want the paint very, very wet. Wetter than you normally paint on the wood. And you roll your brush till you come up with a point. And then you take and you go on the feather and you start in and you make these little lines of dots side by side. I hope that I am in a camera angle that somebody can see. If they're not, please tell me. Are any of the cameras picking this up?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, and you go, this is called vermiculation. And some birds have got it very dark and very broad, like the backs of the sculpt that I'm working on at home right now. And some have got it very light and very small, kind of like that side pockets on the hooded merganser there. But you see, it's just, and you notice how many times I've had to reload my brush now? I'm on starting my fourth row. I still got enough paint in it that I'm still doing it. See? So that's the technique that you use for vermiculation. You get a script brush, which has got real long bristles, and I use a number 2 typically because I do a lot of fine and I don't want it real big, but even a number 2 will give you quite a few. This is a number 2 script. Okay, dry brush blending. We got this black area back here, and I'm going to want to, I'm going to pick a color that shouldn't be dry brushed or blended into it probably, but I'm going to use it for a sake of demonstration so you can see it better. I'm going to take a brush, clean it out pretty good, and then I want to take the color that I'm going to blend and just take a little bit of it. And I mean, I want very little on that brush. You can just barely see it on the ends of it. And you take it and you just rub it. Most of my blending on my feathers and stuff I do with dry brush blending. It works best for me. I can see where I'm going. I can see when I get there. I can see when I want to stop. I'm going to change colors here now and see how I go from one color to another one? That's called dry brush blending. Okay? Now I've told you before that the top of the feather and the bottom of the feather usually have lighter colors. So I'm going to come in here now and see that top feather there, how it's starting to look more like a three-dimensional feather than a flat colored feather. I know that other people have told our group here about the color wheel. If you haven't got one, you really ought to have one. You ought to work with it. You ought to play with it. You ought to experiment with it. It will tell you how to get the colors you want. You can take, somebody was kidding me at the beginning and said, are you going to paint with just 3 paints tonight, or 3 colors tonight? You could if you took your time. You could use the color wheel and mix any paint from those three basic colors. But if you want to just change it a little bit, that color wheel, once you learn how to use it, will help you very immensely get the colors that you want. I already told you to darken colors. You can add black. Black will do it. This is burnt sienna, okay? One of my favorite colors to paint with, not like that, but when you darken it. And I'm going to darken it to start with. I'm going to darken a little bit of it with black. And you see the difference in the brown of the shade of brown here and the shade of brown there? How much difference it is? This is more a color of a brown that you find on your birds. This burnt sienna in its raw form is too red. You can also take here's that purple that I was telling you about earlier, and you can take that brown or that burnt sienna and mix some of that purple in there. I got too much in it, I think. Yeah, there you go. And it will give you a nice brown shade. Not quite as dark as this, but then you can mix the two and blend from one to the other, and it gives you that multicolored that you want in your feathers. You'd want this on the outside, you'd want this at the base, and then you might take a little bit of the white and put it out here on the edge. Then you take your dark color, and if you had a chisel, you could paint your highlights down the thing like this for your splits or your vein. And that's the way you get your different colors. You have to be a little bit reckless in your willingness to try to change colors by mixing some of these up. You can't just stick to the tube and say, well, now where's my next tube that I need to go to? You have to pass that edge. Okay, if I were telling a brand new carver to go out and buy brushes, would I tell him to do this? Absolutely not. I got a small fortune there, and some of them I've never even used yet. What I would tell him is this: you need a maximum of 3 brushes to start. 3 brushes to start. What should you have to start? You should have either a number 3 or a number 4 round. That's the one that you do 90% of your painting with, and you work the chisel point into it, and you can get your detail and so on and so forth. You need a wider, bigger, like an 8 or a 10 flat, just to put on the undercoat, to really put it on in a hurry, okay? And then you need a number 2 script for real small, tiny stuff, including the vermiculation and stuff. Those 3 brushes, if properly cared for and taken care of, will do 98% of all the painting that you need to do on animals. Whether it's a bird or a coyote or a raccoon or, whatever. Those 3 Now, if you're painting big areas, like murals, well, go buy yourself a 2 or 3 inch paintbrush. But when you're painting smaller objects, that's all you really need, and you'd be surprised how fast you can do it. I know that he didn't intend, but I want to include something. Kim, would you go get me the wood duck over on the table? I can't tell Fidencio to bring it, even though it's his wood duck, because he's busy on the camera. But we're going to show you something here now. Now, Fidencio's been working on this in the little group of carvers that meet in my basement, and he was ready to paint it this last time, okay? And he says, well, where do I go? And I says, well, we want to put some undercoat. Now, the wood duck is the most colorful bird in all the waterfowl. It looks like a clown when it gets done. It's painted so bright and so on and so forth. But I told him, I said, the first thing we've got to do is take our gesso and tint it and just kind of paint in the areas that we want to paint. And this is how far he got in one class. That's about 2.5 hours of work. Okay? And now, will any of this paint really show when he gets the highlighting done and the detailing done on this bird? Maybe 5% of it. But you have to have this on there for starters. And there's a ton of different colors in there that he's worked in there. Now he's ready, the next time we meet, he's ready to, and you notice how he's got blotchy areas, which is exactly what you want. Because you don't want to come out with something solid. Look at how that butt is on there. You see? This is where it starts, like this. So, you see how the tops of the feathers on the side pocket feathers on the Drake wood duck have got a white band, and then they got black on it. Well, the black we'll put in a highlight last, but at least we know kind of where the different things are. But one thing that he's done here that I told him not to do, we don't ever use pure white when we're painting birds until we get down to the final detailing. Because if you use pure white, they just look chalky. See how that color in there? It's too white.
But you use it for base coat.
You can use it for base coat, but really I like a darker color in a base coat and then put your highlights on with a lighter color so that they show up more. So I would have started with either a little bit of brown or a little bit of yellow in that white just to make it off a little bit. Okay? Then when you put that whiter white on the top, it shows up better. And then your last coat, which in some cases is the 11th or 12th coat, right at the tips, you take that little script brush and you take just pure white and just barely put a little edge around it and it just pops. Okay? You've seen the swan that I carved in my basement and how the white on the whites show there. That's what that technique's all about. Okay? But I wanted to show you, what a relatively new at painting person can do just on the base coat. I've seen birds that were a lot poorer than this that were entered in contests. Poorer than this way this is. And they thought they were done. So, a lot of good things going on for it here. You haven't asked a whole lot of questions. I think I've covered most of the points that I planned to cover.
Paint, as far as brand. Now, if you go to like Michael's or Hobby Lobby, you've got the ceramic coat or something similar
In the round plastic things?
Yeah.
Okay. That's hobbyist junk.
Now, where would you get this?
Hobby Lobby.
Art section.
Right there in the art section instead of the craft section.
Yeah, don't go buy those $1.29 plastic bottles that's got enough to paint your side of your house.
Yeah.
They're just poor paints. Okay? Do yourself a favor. Again, you don't have to have 50 different paints. You don't have to. Okay? But I want to show you something that really intrigued me. Bill Schurer, a lot of you know him. He comes here most of the time. Last spring, came over to my house with a plastic box. He had bought a kit of Liquitex paints. 48 different colors, 48 different tubes, through the internet. It's called Liquitex 48 Basics, I think it's called. Comes in a nice little tray, and it cost, guess how much? These are the colors. There's 48 of them. This was on the side of the box, okay? Now this box didn't come with it. It came in a cardboard box. And each one of these were a different row. But I put 2 rows in each tray. And you see how many different paints I got? Now what would you estimate all those paints would cost? Liquitex is one of the very best paints you can get. And yes, on some of the paints, some of the colors, there isn't enough in these tubes to last 5 years the way I paint. I'd run out. Some of these I'll never run out of. I never use those colors that often. But it's nice to have them, because I paint things other than birds. Okay?
150.
150?
Yeah.
$34. $34 for 48 paints. So you don't have to spend a small fortune to get enough to really do your job. Okay? Well, yeah,
Shop on Amazon.
it was on Amazon, but and then I got others where there's colors that I use a lot of. This is the size tube that you buy at Hobby Lobby, and typically that's this was $7.50 for this one. This is burnt umber. Okay, you wait till you get your Grand Rapids paper. And it's got a 40% off discount coupon in it every Sunday. You take it.
On your phone.
You
Going
can,
in that
yeah,
paper.
if you got those things. If you're a tech person, I don't even have a cell phone, so. But you know, you can take those coupons in, and the color. There are 2 or 3 colors that I buy, that I use a lot of.
I buy black in a giant,
But this kind of thing,
I use so much of it. Yeah.
Good.
This is for painting signs and poster boards. Any other questions, comments? I hope that it's inspired you to try something. I again, like I always do, invite you to join us at our group. I live in Middleville. From here, it's 22 miles. On Thursday afternoons from 1 to 4, you're welcome to come in and do whatever you want to do, and I'll give you as much or as little personal help as you want. That's it.